It's the West Tigers podcast, episode number 365. The West Tigers podcast has been on spring break. I don't know where it's been on spring break, but we're calling it as being back for another off-season edition. Sponsored by the West Tigers Podcast Forum. Join the discussion at westtigerspodcast.com.au. Click on forum and join us there and have your say. It's been turning over nicely during the off-season, even though there's been different fluctuations in news and things to talk about. Not a whole lot of concrete news in the last couple of weeks. That's why we've sort of held off on recording a pod, but a few things going on. And Garry and Nick have volunteered some time on a Tuesday night to talk everything West Tigers. Hello, gentlemen. I thought, Garry, we might start with the one of those situations that's fluid at the moment, and that is the search for independent directors for the West Tigers board. It's with a consultancy at the moment. There's a search for people with the recommended skill set to be involved. It's exciting to see who they come up with, and it'd be great to see the list of who's put their name in.
I'd love to see a list of who's put their name in.
Yes.
I did hear a rumour Nick may have put his in, but I don't know how true that was. What's good about it for me is as soon as we saw that confirmation that the recruitment process for those board members has started, that to me is the final nail in the coffin of getting the review changes through. That to me is the sign that those key parts of the review that we're still waiting to be implemented are in the process of happening. It's been a long time since that review was handed down. We're talking almost 12 months now. I think it was December 12 or something last year, and we're now at the start of November. So it's really pleasing to see that this is finally happening, because I think this is a crucial step for our club. I think this step right now, getting the right people into those roles, has potential to set us up as a club for the next 20, 30 years. So the recruitment agency, I think it's Elevate Recruitment or something along those lines, they specialise in recruiting for boards. And this is the type of process I really wanted to see the club implement to find board members, a professional process run by an outside agency. Hopefully there's some really high caliber candidates and we get a really impressive board moving forward.
Nick, I suppose it's a good sign that it hasn't been a rushed process. We're all impatient. We all want to get this really final and important stage completed, but I guess I'm getting some heart from the fact that it looks like it is going through a proper process and proper due diligence is being taken to make sure we get the right people on the board, probably, maybe potentially for the first time in the club's history.
Not potentially.
Probably true, yes.
Yeah, it's certainly happening. I think that's probably showing a bit of Richo's leadership, I suppose. He has steadied the ship in a lot of respects and silenced a lot of the leaks that were coming out of the club too. And I think probably that's where we're getting... I think it's easy to be frustrated as a West Tigers fan when you come last for 3 years in a row and things aren't going your way. You want to hear some positive news, and you probably get to a point where you just want to hear some news, especially when it's gone so quiet, when you've been used to hearing things day in, day out for so long. So I'm looking forward to hearing some updates on the directors. And no, I haven't applied, Garry, and as you know, I've been nudging you. I think you would make a very good director. I know a lot of people have probably suggested you might be interested in a coaching role at some point in your career, but I think director's probably your go, mate. And I'm very disappointed if you haven't, and you say you haven't, if you haven't put in an application.
Look, for me, I will answer that, is I think we need higher qualified people than myself in those sort of roles. We want the highest qualified people we can get for this. My hope is we're getting some really great applicants, and we have a board moving forward that rivals what the Roosters have and the people they have working at the Roosters. That's what I want to see out of this process. I want a process where we've got a board that can network and engage with the big end of town in a way that we haven't been able to do in the past. So for me, this is a really crucial period, and I just hope we get it right.
It's a very specific set of qualifications and experience that you need. I'll throw back to you, Garry. Do you think that the people need to specifically be rugby league people or people that are outside of the game? What's your feeling about that? Do you think we're looking for a mix? What's the optimum?
For me, when we talk about a skills matrix, which has been set up for the board, I'm looking for a skill matrix not across one person, but a range of skills across your board. So I want people who have connections in television so they can communicate with people in the television industry. I want people who have connections in government, like Barry O'Farrell, who's the current chair. He can leverage that side of his skill set to engage government for when you're looking at things like stadium upgrades and funding for various programs. I want someone who can engage with the big end of town, someone who has connections to those big companies we have in the country, those ones that we can be looking at bringing on for sponsors. I do want someone who has really good football knowledge in there. We do need that. So I want someone with a football background. I want someone, especially at our club, I think governance issues has been a really big problem at our club. So someone who can manage change in governance and change of culture throughout not just the football team, but throughout an organisation. So these are skills I don't necessarily want to see one person having. But for me, a skills matrix is the skills you want across the entire board. And that's what I'm hoping we get, that we get a nice rounded range of people who can meet a vast wide range of skills, because I think that sets us up best for the future. So, yeah, to answer your question, it's probably a mix, because I want those skills spread out amongst all those board members.
I was just thinking about if Eddie was on the board, he'd be looking for an emergency board meeting after every loss. You just imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine the board chat when we're down 40-0 at half time. It wouldn't be too much fun, I don't think.
Nick,
I'd love to see Eddie as the spokesperson. I'd love him out in front of the media every week.
Yeah, absolutely. Eddie Unfiltered. Nick, I was going to ask you about, because you made a really good point about the fan experience for being a West Tigers fan. It is different, that we aren't in that constant cycle, which was really, really draining and really zapped a lot of energy, because we were constantly in the news. This player was coming, this player was leaving, this was happening, that was happening. I don't know. I mean, yeah, we used to make it a little bit more interesting, and it certainly gave us a little bit more to talk about at times. But I'm finding this off-season is not anywhere near as tiring and exhausting as the usual.
Which is kind of good, right? It's nice to sit back and have some downtime. And I know that it's funny because our group chat kind of comes and goes in waves, right? When someone sends a message, it can ramble on. All of a sudden, you've got 50, 60 messages in 10 minutes. And
that's
sometimes,
usually just Eddie.
Yeah, well, it is. And then you going back at him, which is quite amusing to watch. But it's nice to have the quiet time. I think when you're a struggling club, you want to grasp onto something to give you some hope. And we haven't had that for so long. I think if you flipped it, if we were Penrith fans, you're basking in your glory of 4 straight grand finals. You're on top of the world. You wouldn't really care what's happening in the boardroom or in the admin office, because life's great. So I think we're just looking for something to hold on to and something to give us a bit of hope.
Yeah, I don't know what you'd talk about if you were doing the Panthers podcast or some of these other clubs. It'd be so boring. And interestingly, there is
got shoulder surgery today, so there's something they would be talking about.
They can do round-the-clock coverage. Interestingly, they don't have a podcast. I've had a bit of a look around as to how many podcasts the different clubs have got. We by far have the most.
Yeah,
some
about
clubs
47.
Yeah, some clubs have none. Some clubs have one. Some clubs maybe have 2. But we've got 143 and growing all of the time. Gary, you were going to say something else.
Yeah, look, the quiet time is nice, but as a club that's finished 3 years in a row wooden spoon, we need some news soon. And I'm not so much talking rumours. We need some factual news sometime in the next few weeks, I think, to really give our build. The side went back to training this week, so a lot of the younger guys and a lot of the early career players were back at Concord this week to really build that push into season 2025. I think we need a little bit more news over the next couple of weeks.
And when I saw that article come out on the website and also on the West Tigers Facebook post and Instagram as well, of the players that came back from day one training, you look at the photos and it's majority of the younger guys and the guys that have played this season. I looked at it and thought, there's not a lot here that I'm overly excited about. But yeah, good days coming. I look forward, as I've said, to Jarome coming in day one, to Ruba. Be nice to see those boys in Tigers colours for the very first time. But I guess it's only the start. It's only beginning in November. A few months to go yet. But hopefully the club can do some shuffling of the deck chairs and announce some outgoings and incomings very soon.
Yeah, in regards to the players that are there so far, it's basically how it works is I think it's up to year 3 of your career, you only get an 8-week break. So after that, they start extending it. You get an extra couple of weeks break if you've been playing for 3 to 5 years or something it is. And that's why you see a lot of, that's why it's Jarome Luai, Pole, all those younger players who haven't got to that point where they get that little bit of extra break. One of the interesting ones was Lockie Galvin, I don't think was actually due back to next week because he played the Prime Minister's game. So the fact that he was there this week, I thought was a pretty good sign for us.
I was going to jump in and say that. I saw the photos of Lockie Galvin, and I did hear an interview where he said he couldn't wait to get back for day one. And you're right, he came back early. He's got a bit of bleach blonde in his hair, and he's looking, like a young kid that's just chomping at the bit to get back into it. So, yeah, exciting to see.
You mentioned Jarome Luai. What did we make of the video that he recorded? 26 or 27 seconds, I think it was. It went off everywhere. It got a lot of views. A good little move, Gary. Is that sort of the soft little entrance into the West Tigers that you wanted? Would you have waited and held off and waited till he was actually at Concord? And I guess when do you anticipate he will turn up at Concord? Do you think he'll come in, grab his gear, get some photos, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it wasn't a bad... I thought it was a pretty good thing to put out, especially around that time of turning over to the new NRL year, because that starts on the 1st of November. So I think getting that out, and... Because he really... I thought the way he dealt with his exit from Penrith... he did answer questions about coming to the Tigers, but he was very classy towards Penrith. And he spoke about moving on, but he didn't overly emphasise about coming to the Tigers. It was good to see him talk about Tigers in the way that he did in that press release that they put out, and the fact that I did like that I'm coming to win, and I'm coming to win consistently. Like that to me is just the Luai we've seen for the past 4 years as Penrith just rolled through the competition for 4 years straight. That's that attitude, and that's what I want him to bring to our club. So I thought that was really pleasing to see. And in regards to him coming back, I don't think he can actually start training until the new year. But I do expect that he'll show up at Concord at some point in the next couple of weeks. Whenever it is he gets back from England, maybe a little bit of time off. But I expect to see him show up. And for me, that's a huge day for our club. I can't wait for that day where he shows up and he's got Tigers gear on for the first time. Hopefully with a sponsor at some point on it. But I think that's a massive day for the club when that marquee signing, the guy that I guess everyone's kind of pinning their hopes on, turns our club around. His first day at the club is very exciting for me.
It's the biggest signing in the club's history, isn't it, Nick? I can't really think... I can think of other players that came with big reputations and big hopes, but somebody we've never experienced something like this before, and it still feels a little surreal. He still, to me... He hasn't been in our colours, but he still feels like a Penrith player to me. I still have to sort of pinch myself sometimes to remind myself that he is one of us now.
It's huge, and I think the last 12 months he really reinforced or probably justified the contract that we've given him and the amount of money that we're paying him as well. Because 12 months ago he was a 6, and he was a 6 beside Nathan Cleary. And even today, someone reposted something on X, and I was looking through the comments. It was from a year ago. Actually, it was one of the journalists had reposted the video of when there was something about when he joined with the Tigers, but a lot of people were bagging it, saying, I can't believe they spent $1.2 million on a 6. He's not even a playmaker. What are Tigers doing? They're wasting their money, always going backwards. But he's really shown this year that he can stand out and be a playmaker and lead a team around the field. And I think that is extremely exciting. And there's a huge aura around Jarome. And I think when he walked in, like Gary's saying on day one, that's really going to lift the young guys that are at training. So I'm hoping it's on a day where they're all either in the gym or on the field doing ball work. And I know the media is going to be there in numbers to capture that as he's walking into Concord. And I hope that Jarome, hangs around for whether it's field work or gym work and gives the boys a bit of coverage, because I think that's going to be a huge day.
And the exciting thing for me last weekend is he played his last game for Samoa. So next football game he plays, he's going to be in West Tigers colours. So no more sitting there worrying that he's going to cop an injury while while playing for some other team. He's a West Tigers now, and next time we see him out on the field, we'll be playing for our club. So I can't wait.
It's a good point you made, Nick, in that often we've signed a player and the player is then dipped, and whereas Luai has sort of got better since he made that decision, and I think it's justified his decision that he wants to be the main man, and it's pushing him to the next level, and he has got a massive challenge in front of him here. But I think if anybody can do it, it's him. He's got that confidence. As you said, he's got that swagger.
He has, and I think he's matured as well over the last 12 months, especially, probably the last couple of years. Probably, actually, if you go back to, when was it in Origin? Maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where he put out that post just after the game saying, "You've all got work tomorrow on the Thursday." I think he's come a long way since then. He's still got that cheekiness, but he just seems a lot more down to earth. He's extremely confident, and as he mentioned, Garry, the wording that he used in that video, which I think I watched about 68 times, which did give me chills, by the way. Such a powerful video to put across to the fans. But he really holds himself really well. I know he said he's coming to win and he's coming to win consistently. That's what we all want to hear as Tigers fans. I still get a little bit nervous when I think about who potentially we might be playing in the first 6 to 10 weeks and how we start. And I know I was listening to James Graham's podcast. I think it was James Graham podcast today. It might have been Michael Shamus was saying how much pressure they're going to be on the Tigers come the start of the year because they have to start well. Because if they don't, we've got players like Lockie Galvin coming off contract who, and we've talked about this before, if we don't start well 2025, it'd be very easy for these young guys to say, well, what are we doing? We're wasting our prime years, coming into NRL at the Tigers who are really struggling. So we really need to get off to a flyer next year. Hopefully we do.
Yeah, progress is what's really important for me next season and moving forward. The thing with Jarome Luai for me is he's a 4-time Premiership winner now, playing in the halves. And when you have a look at the accolades that Penrith side gets, he probably doesn't get the accolades he deserves as a guy that's won 4 premierships playing in the halves. And for me, I think that's a driving motivator for him in coming across. I think he's someone who probably cares about his standing in the history of the game. I think he's got that arrogance and that attitude that he wants to be seen as one of the better players to have played rugby league. And by coming to the West Tigers and if he can push us into the top 8 and push us up towards the top of the comp, and dare say it, if he wins a premiership in the next 5 years at this club, he sets him up as an immortal. Like 5 premierships at 2 clubs and taking a club from last to first, he sets himself up to be a great of our game. And for me, I think that's a big driving factor in this move that he's made. And that excites me because he has that motivation, that drive, and that arrogance to kind of achieve that when most people, probably myself included, don't think he can. And I no matter what, it's going to be a fun ride over the next couple of years to see what changes he can bring to this club.
It's funny. I was just going to say, Nick, it's an interesting situation where you've got probably the most confident, optimistic guy coming into the fan base that is the most pessimistic and defeated fan base probably in the history of the game, Nick.
Yeah, you're spot on. He's got a big challenge in front of him. And I hope the Luai factor too can help to bring some more quality in those key positions that we need across to our club. We've had Appy now for a couple of seasons, and Appy is amazing. I love him, but he just doesn't quite have that, I guess, that maybe that outgoing or external personality that Jarome does. Maybe he's a different type of personality. He's probably a little bit quieter, maybe a tad more shy, but maybe the two of them together can just add that little bit of spark that we've been missing. I'd really love to see, as we've talked about, some announcements coming very soon in some of those prime positions that we need to just complement those boys to give us a bit more punch.
So just not on the field, I think in leadership roles and off the field, I think Appy and Jarome are going to complement each other really well. When you have a look at them as leaders, Appy is that lead by example type guy.
Yep.
He's that guy that everyone's watched him play. He goes out there and he busts the gut for 80 minutes, quite often probably pushing himself too far to the detriment of his own game, trying to drag his team out of the spot it's in. Jarome Luai is a little bit different to that. He's not so much that guy who's going to bust a gut. He's going to hold everyone else around him to a standard. And that's probably the side of the leadership and the captaincy that Appy hasn't had. I don't think he's really that guy to demand from other players around him when they're playing poorly or when they need to lift their standards. Jerome's that guy, and I think those two working together could really set us up really well. And talking about leadership, I'd probably be naming them as co-captains for that reason, because I just think they complement each other so well.
100%.
All right, well, let's have a little bit of talk about player recruitment for 2025. It appears there's been no official confirmation that Chris Gatu has departed the club. And we read the stories about Jordan Miller departing. Neither of those two confirmed by the club at this stage. But the math seems to show that we're at 29 players. Sione Fainu still not signed. So potentially we have one spot, or we may not if we're going to sign Fainu and take that 30th position. It's still a worry, isn't it, Gary? Apparently we have money to spend, but the problem continues to be spots in the roster and getting some of these guys out. That's as big a challenge as it is, by the look of it, as getting some guys in.
Yeah, the club did release the top 30, the top 29 players last week, and Chris and Jordan Miller weren't there, so I think we can just assume that they are no longer at the club and we're at that 29 mark. For me, it appears to me that at some point, Sione Fainu's probably been offered a top 30 spot. I think he's probably got a guarantee for a top 30 spot. There doesn't seem to be any noise about him going to another club, and I think he did well enough this year that another club would be picking him up, or there'd at least be noise around another club picking him up for next season. So for me, I think he's probably going to be one of the top 30, but I couldn't sign him to that top 30 spot now. That one spot we've got left, I think we've got other priorities, and if I'm really honest, I need us freeing up and signing 2 players before we're probably looking at signing Sione Fainu. Terrell May, I'll raise him now. I think he's a guy that we really should be going really hard after. I've questioned a little bit the signing of Royce Hunt, a guy that doesn't play huge minutes, has plenty of impact, but some games has only been playing 15 to 20 minutes for Cronulla Sharks. Now, that signing to me only makes sense if you're signing a guy that can play 50 to 60 minutes with impact to kind of counter that out at the other end. And for me, when you have a look at the season Terrell May's just come off, he's that perfect guy to be signing to that role. He played 80 minutes one game last year for 214 metres with decent impact. So he's a guy that we can have playing 50 to 60 minutes, getting 150 plus metres out of with really good impact. To me, not only does that signing make our forward pack stronger because we've got that guy, probably that guy we were all hoping Steph was going to turn into, but it makes the signing of Royce Hunt a much better signing because it kind of balances each other out because you've got a guy that can play that 50 to 60 minutes of high quality, high impact football. And then you've got a guy who you can bring on to play that other 20 minutes, 25 minutes. If you can get 30 minutes out of him, great, of really high impact football, but doesn't have the stamina to keep it going for the 80. So for me, that signing, that Terrell May signing, I think if we get him over the line and we get him here next year, that moves us from a side that's probably trying to push out of the bottom four, not the top 4, into a side that is probably pushing towards the top 8. It's that big of a signing, and I think we should really be doing everything we can. And I hope we've spoken about Jarome Luai and his ability to get players across. He's just spent the past 3 or 4 weeks in England with Terrell May in the Samoan camp. I hope he's been in his ear the entire time because I think that really supercharges our rebuild into next year and gives us a chance where Steve is constantly talking about where we expect to finish and it's top 8 or bust. If we get Terrell May over the line and add in maybe even Hetherington with that, I think we're a side that's really on that fringe of the top 8 and And that'd be really exciting moving into the next year.
Well, Richo, Nick did say we'd have a war chest if Stefano doesn't take the offer. As I said earlier, it appears we've got the money, and we do have a spot, but there has been some reports that the Bulldogs are in the race, the Dragons are in the race. I don't know. I'd like to get him. I'm not overly optimistic that he's going to come our way. I don't know any more than that's just a gut feeling. What do you feel about Terrell May? Does he suit like Gary's saying as far as you're concerned?
I think so. He's pretty young too. What is he, 20? Is he 23,
25.
24? 25, okay. So, yeah, he's probably, coming up to the prime of his career, I suppose. But like Gary said, he's playing a lot of minutes and he's making good meters with decent impact as well. So I like the idea of Terrell coming across. So, Gary, did you say we have got 29 at the moment filled?
We're at 29 right now.
Okay, we've got one space. And I did hear today that apparently Hetherington's having a meeting with Madge and his manager next week to discuss the future. And in that same
I think there's big chances he won't be at Brisbane next year.
Yeah, in that same conversation that I was listening to on the same pod, they was saying that the Tigers have been huge trying to talk with him and get him to come across. So that would mean we'd have to offload someone, which is, I guess, where we're trying to work out how the puzzle works going forward.
Yeah, for me, at this point in time, Terrell May and Hetherington are the priority over Sione Fainu getting a contract. Now, that's no criticism on Sione Fainu. I think he had a great year. I want him at our club next year. But we need these two guys can be club changers for us. Sione Fainu is going to play a role in our club, and I'm hoping he's playing a role in our club next year. But those two have to be the priority. So I think we really still need to free up 2 more spots. Hopefully it's a Bateman going off and a Bud Sullivan going off elsewhere. Possibly Adam Dewey. There's been rumours about him going across to St. George. If we can free up a couple of those spots, I'd really love to get Hetherington and May, and then Sione Fainu as well. But I also do think we're still probably a centre short. So there are still a few issues around that squad we've got to fix up, and we need roster spaces to do it. I think we need at least another 2, possibly another 3 roster spots freed up for us to really hit the market like we need to.
I can't imagine there being any changes in the backline at this stage, but I think that if Hetherington is not at Brisbane, he's at the West Tigers. That seems to be the feeling.
It seems to be all the talk everywhere.
That seems to be all the talk there, which would be good because it certainly solves a problem we've had for a few years, and that's that lock forward role. And if you are Hetherington, why wouldn't you? I know that I know he's a Queenslander, but come and play first grade here, better than playing in the Queensland Cup, being stuck behind a guy that's not going to be giving up that 13 jersey at any point in the near future.
And that's what that meeting is about with Maguire. It's about whether he's going to have a starting spot next year.
Yeah, I don't like his chances.
No, I don't think there's much chance of that happening. So I think there's a very good chance that he won't be at Brisbane next year. I think we need to prioritise probably Terrell May over him. But I'd love to get both of them across to the club next year. I think it makes a massive difference to our forward pack. And when you have a look at the upgrades we've made to our spine, we've got a very good spine going into next year. And having it play behind the forward pack as it currently stands is doing those guys a disservice. So I think it's something we really need to get sorted out.
It looks like Jaden Sullivan might be on the way out. There's a report that he could be looking at a move to the Super League, which is sort of contradicts what we heard before, which was he didn't want to move away from Wollongong. So that is a big move. Apparently the Tigers willing to chip in $300,000 per year to anybody that will take him off our hands. Nick, it would be nice. And again, it's a little bit like Hetherington. Yeah, I know it sucks that he signed this contract with West Tigers, but you're completely blocked here. Like, what's the point of staying here and playing reserve grade? I just can't see him getting a chance. And I think that's going to be so detrimental to your career. A Super League move, to me, seems ideal for Jaden Sullivan.
I think he'd probably do well in the Super League. He looks like a Super League player to me. I was having this conversation separately with Gary. Was it yesterday or today? I can't remember. But I made a comment. I said I wouldn't be surprised if Bud just sits it out for the next 3 years and plays cup and takes his money. But you're right. He's only young, and it would ruin his NRL career, wouldn't it? Because he's highly unlikely to get a half spot at another club, you would think.
That's a key point for me. He's not a Russell Packer who's in the last contract of his career. He's not a bateman who can probably afford to play reserve grade on 700,000, 800,000, whatever it is he's on, and it's not going to harm him. At Bud Sullivan's age, if he sits in reserve grade for the next 3 years, that's his career over. Like, he doesn't get another contract anywhere near what he's on after the next 3 years. So for me, for his best interests, also massively the best interest for the club as well, but for his best interest, he needs to find somewhere else to play, because sitting in reserve grade is going to ruin him. And I agree. I think he would kill it over in the Super League. You have a look at some of the players that have gone over the Super League who weren't having great careers in the NRL, and they've actually shone over there. Some of them have come back and made it into NRL teams in the halves and had good careers back here after it. But I think that Super League move would probably be the best option for him at this point in time.
If we were to let Bud go tomorrow and send him over all next season, what's 300,000 for the next 3 years going to do to our salary cap? Because that's a fair chunk.
It is a fair chunk, but right now, what's more important for us right now is roster spots. And depending on, I would have liked, the best way to deal with this would have been to have something sorted before November 1. Then anything you kind of have left over in the salary cap, you can give him a little bit of a payout there and count it in last year's salary cap, and it doesn't affect you as much moving forward. So it really depends on how your salary cap looks. It depends on what it looks like for the next 12 months. We've got a new $1.3 or $4 million player, whatever it is we're paying him, coming in. But if we've got room in the salary cap for next year, maybe we can even boost that 300,000 to 400,000, 500,000, 600,000 next year, and it doesn't hit us as hard. Like, he's on 500,000 next year. Maybe we still pay him that 500,000 next year and reduce the following years after that. Those sort of things are the questions that get asked. So just because it's $300,000 in the media doesn't mean it's 300,000 for the next 3 years. So my hope is that you can play around with the numbers and it gets less over time.
Who gave him a 4-year deal?
Yeah, Pasco.
Mate, a desperate signing, but the only saving grace on it, all I can say is, it was a desperate signing, but we were incredibly desperate at the time. I'm not happy with the deal he's on. I understand why they made that. We had no halves. We were coming off a season where we had Wakeham, and I can't even remember who else was playing.
Will Smith
at one point. Yeah, Wakeham and Will Smith playing in the halves. Luke Brooks, who no one really wanted here, had gone off to Manly.
Except Steve.
We were left with nothing. So I do kind of understand why they were... Yeah, except Steve. Sorry, I just picked that up.
Yeah.
Yes, except Steve.
You know, I genuinely, honestly thought when Brooks went to Manly that we'd see Steve sitting on the hill at Brookvale in a Manly jersey this year. I really thought there might have been a chance.
But you don't know that didn't happen?
Yes, that's true.
He may have had a moustache and some glasses on.
Correct.
Didn't Steve just sell his house? I heard he's moving to Brookvale.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I was going to make the point, you know what really annoys me about rugby league sometimes is, and the media having a go, well, there's this inference all of the time that the West Tigers are like doing over Jayden Sullivan. Like, we're underhanded, we're just interested in our own interests and all of that. But the lay of the land is that you've got a guy here that you can't even get any other NRL club interested for $200,000 a year. Like, surely as a player, doesn't that wake you up and go, yeah, maybe this deal is, yeah, it's great to get the money, but I've got to look at getting out and changing this deal and getting somewhere else so I can prove myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just drives me a bit bananas, that narrative.
Mate, that narrative drives me bananas all the time, because though they talk about players being disloyal and breaking contracts, and that clubs do it as well, the difference is when a club does it, that person's still guaranteed that money that they signed for. Bud Sullivan will get that money that he signed on for the next 3 years. Whether we're paying all of it and he's playing reserve grade for the West Tigers, or whether we're paying half, 3/4 of it and he's playing elsewhere and they're making up the difference. He will get that money from that contract. So for me, that kind of obligation of the club side is that guaranteed money. And he's going to get that. And yes, it's harsh that there's no spot for him in the first grade side. But that's just the reality of the situation. And no matter how he performs for us or wherever he goes, he's guaranteed that money for the next 3 years. So that narrative does get to me a little bit as well, because he gets what he signed on for. The club hasn't.
It's been a little bit, going back to that earlier point about there being leaks and stories, and it seems to be a sort of fairly wide across the game at the moment. You're hearing all these stories about players potentially moving, but nothing seems to be really happening. Gutherson's a perfect example. It just seems like it was there and he was released and he's just floating out in the ether now, Gary.
Yeah, well, Hunt had to sign a participation contract or something it was for the NRL to allow him to play for Australia this weekend in the final of the Pacific Cup, because he doesn't have a contract with an NRL club, which means he doesn't have the insurance.
Yeah.
So he's had to sign a participation contract or whatever it is, agreement or something it was called, so he could play for Australia this weekend. And it's something that I've seen over the past 2 months that I've never seen it before. It happened with Regan Campbell-Gillard as well, is usually when a player gets released, they're announcing with another club straight away, like the same day.
Yeah.
And for the past 2 months, I think we're up to 3 or 4 players now who have been released from clubs, and there's just nothing for weeks.
Yeah.
Like Ben Hunt, I thought would have been cleaned up really quickly. I thought news of where he was going would have been out within probably hours, let alone days at most, and that's pushing over a week now. And Burrell May, I don't think has been officially released by the Roosters yet, but the story's been around for a week or so that he's no longer wanted there. On that, my guess is that Roosters are freeing up money to go after Hunt. That's my theory on the release of Terrell May, despite lots of other rumours floating around. I'd say that the Roosters are looking to free up some cash to go after someone else.
You could also maybe potentially make the argument that that Hunt wants to go to the Broncos and they need to clear a space by moving Hetherington on, which comes back to us. And then, if Dewey went to the Dragons, that'd be win-win-win-win-win. That'd be fantastic. Let's move on.
You don't want to keep Adam Dewey? Yeah.
I think everybody's off Dewey, aren't they? Are there any Dewey fans left?
I did get in trouble in some Facebook chat group through the week with someone arguing me that I was an Adam Dewey hater.
No, nobody hates him. We just kind of don't see where he fits in with the team and believe that he may be better off somewhere else for his sake and our sake. It's probably not a bad. It's the same with Bateman. I don't mind the guy. Got nothing against him, but does he fit into our club next year? I don't think so. It'd be nice if he got an opportunity somewhere else. The same with Jaden Sullivan. Don't wish them any ill will or anything like that. It's just better for them, better for us, Nick.
Yeah, another opportunity, I think, for Adam Dewey. He wants to play halves. He's come out and said that he's a half, so he's not going to be a half at West Tigers. There's too many in front of him now. So if he stays here, he's a 3 or a 4 or
5 or 6.
Oh, look, he'd be the perfect lock if only he could tackle. That's
correct.
Yeah, yep. He'd be sensational there, but it's just not going to happen, I don't think. So good on him. He should chase that dream of being a half. He's been pretty adamant about it, so stick with it, Adam, but it's not going to be here, unfortunately. The NRL draw, gentlemen, apparently not too far away from coming out. I thought we might have a quick look at what our best and worst case scenario for round 1 would be, or even just what would you like? What game would you like? Eddie says he'd love the bye in round 1. I don't really want the bye. I hated that last year. I'd like the bye after about 4 or 5 weeks. That'd be perfect.
Eddie wants 27 buys.
27 buys, exactly.
That'd be nice. Might make the 8.
Is the NRL going to pull strings and make it so it's Jarome Luai up against the Penrith Panthers in round 1? I reckon there's a good chance. No, because of Vegas.
That's right.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I think that will be a round 2 matchup.
Round 2, yeah.
But they can't do that round 1 because, Penrith's going to Vegas.
Yeah. Well, who do you want to play in round 1, Nick, if that's the case? And it can't be Penrith.
Could be another spoon bowl.
Yeah, the Eels.
Let's get the Eels out. No, we'll have them in Easter Monday, so I don't think we'll be playing them round 1. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard, isn't it? When you come last, everyone's in front of you. So what's an easy game? I don't think there is an easy game. Do you want an easier game or do you want a harder game? In round 1, you don't really know how the players are going to fair. Combinations aren't going to be there yet. So, I really don't know. To be honest, I probably don't care so much. It'd probably be nice to have a lighter game, I suppose. The way the NRL work, they probably want us to play someone I wouldn't call it a blockbuster, but someone that's going to have a decent rivalry against us. So, I don't know, maybe Manly. Why don't we play Manly?
Yeah, Manly would be good. Yeah. Gary, who do we play in that second trial? Is that the Bulldogs? Was that locked in at Leichhardt?
Honestly, I haven't looked at the trials at this point yet, so I'm not sure of that. I think Penrith would have been the perfect team to play round one. I think that would have been a dream matchup, and I guess Vegas kind of gets in the way of that, and it makes it hard to really find that matchup that's really the kick off our season. I don't want the bye either. I hated having that first round bye last year, and I thought there was times during the year we could have really used a break, and the fact that we lost one in the first round, I don't think that was great for us. Maybe someone like the Bulldogs, I think, would be a good start. But when you have a look at the history of the first 5 rounds of the competition, that's the time to play the top teams. The top teams quite often get off to a bit of a slower start. That's a time where there's a lot more upsets in the game. Now, the one you don't want to play is Melbourne because they absolutely never lose round one. But any of those other top 4, give us the Roosters, give us someone like that. I think that's a better time to play those sort of sides than later in the season. So before they get on a little bit of a roll. So I wouldn't mind seeing us play someone like the Roosters. Not Melbourne. Manly, I don't really mind. I just can't wait for us to play.
What about the Newtown Jets at Henson Park? That'd be a good game.
What are you on the same bandwagon as Eddie and trying to send us back to New South Wales Cup, Nick?
I wouldn't mind standing in the hill with Eddie and watching a game out at Henson or have a couple of cans. That'd be good. Probably, I think they still sell KB out there. Sounds like a good afternoon.
I'm tipping the Dragons. I reckon the Dragons would be good. Decent team. Not a great team, but I reckon that'd be a good team to match us up against.
Well, a team at the moment that has no halves. So,
yeah, exactly.
It might not be a bad matchup at all.
Correct. So let's hope
possibly AD as a half.
Let's hope for the Dragons.
Flanagan and Adam Dewey as a halves partnership. That would be fantastic to see.
Yeah, don't let them make any breaks because you just never catch them. The speed would be sensational. Let's move on to buy, sell, and hold. Not the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's copyrighted Gary Watson.
That's right. I'm the only one who's allowed to do that.
Correct. Buy, sell, and hold. It's what do they call it when it's in the public domain? Not copyrighted, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's
that's what buy, sell, and hold is. Anybody can use it. What's that?
Yep. Patent? Is that the word you're looking for?
No, the opposite. It's free use.
Free use, exactly. It's anybody can use it. You can start your own West Tigers podcast, and you can have your own buy, sell, and hold, and we won't take you to court. Don't worry. All right, I've only got 4. I can only come up with 4, so we'll see how we go. And as always, I'm not as strict as Eddie. You can buy and sell and hold as many times as you want. You don't have to worry about holding
Nick's
your holds.
Nick's just going to hold them all. We all know he can't make a decision.
Splinters, Nick. Yep. Okay. I'll start with you, Gary. Buy, sell, and hold. Olam and Taruva will be the round 1 centres for the West Tigers.
Yeah, I'll buy that as long as Olam's not injured. I think Taruva was signed as a centre. I think the fact that Skelton was signed and will still rumoured to be after Montoya after that, I think that kind of shows the club's hand that they've signed Taruva to play in the centres. I think Luke will be on one wing and Skelton will be on the other. Possibly Staines, maybe that early in the season, may get a crack on the wing instead of Luke. But I expect to see Taruva and Olam as the centres going into the season.
Did you see Skelton and that pass in that game for Samoa? Did you see the mix-up that he contributed to the game?
I only saw the highlights, so I didn't see that.
Oh, man. It had West Tigers written all over it. If you saw it, you know exactly what I mean.
Well, hopefully we've got him into a role, and his role is just to make early meters.
And not pass with a meter before the line. Olam and Taruva, you going to buy, sell, or hold that, Nick?
I Yeah, I'll buy it. I'm hoping to see a lot more of Olam this coming season. You know, I've said it before. He's such an important part of our attack. He just adds a little bit of X factor there. He's still strong, but he's kind of broken, isn't he? And that's the worry. He was so broken this season. He was almost like he was in for 1 week and out for two. Yeah, I think they're probably the logical centre pairing. I can't see Adam Dewey if he's still around. Getting a start ahead of either of those two boys, and I'll run with those two in the centres.
Yeah, I can't see it being. I mean, yeah. Dewey, I guess, is somebody who comes into calculations. Just trying to think. I mean, then you've got a youngster. You've got a Fagatu or Falidi, but you'd have to think they'd have to play out of their skin, train out of their skin, and wow in the trials. And if Olam and Taruva are fit, I think that's the way they'll go at this stage, Nick.
I don't mind the idea of Adam Dewey in the centres. I like the way he plays in attack, but I don't have any trust or faith in him in defence.
It's a very, very difficult position to defend in. If you're not a good defender, centre, you get caught out.
And we really saw that. Gary, the back half of this season, we saw it with Adam. He just got beat so many times, and like we've said, he was just so slow to turn and chase. That's where we really need those effort areas, but I just don't see it in Adam.
Yeah, I don't think he has a lateral movement to defend in the centres. That's where he kind of gets caught out. He makes some bad reads, so defensively, I don't think we can afford to have him playing in the centres.
The next question number 2 in buy, sell, hold. Brent Naden, remember him? Will play NRL for West Tigers in 2025. Gary, buy, sell, or hold? We'll see Naden in the NRL side at some stage.
I'm going to sell it. I'm still hopeful that he won't be at the club next year, which is a hard thing to say because at times I've been a really big fan and a really big supporter of Naden. And I think he won the New South Wales Cup Player of the Year. I thought he was brilliant in playing in New South Wales Cup this year. All the games I got out to, he played fantastically well. Played in the halves and played really well in the halves in some of those games as well. But for me, there's just too much silly, stupid errors that come along with it. Silly, stupid penalties that come along with it. Fading in and out of games that come along with it. It's hard because he's a guy, I think, who has all the talent in the world. I think he has everything he needs to be a really strong NRL centre. He's a big body. He's quick. He can bust tackles. He's got good footwork. He can pass. But it's the mental snaps that really hurt him. And there's just been too many of those for me. That, like, too many stupid sin binnings, too many stupid penalties, too many stupid mistakes. And I don't think he's a player we can afford to have playing in the NRL.
It would be interesting if we did, although, it's probably would be long odds. I'm just thinking out loud in round 1. If you had the ex-Penrith players, you had Taruva, Naden and Staines all in that backline in round 1. That would be interesting. Working with Luai is what my point being. That may make Luai a little bit more comfortable just to get started. But I don't know. What do you think about Naden in 2025? Will he make a contribution, Nick?
Sadly, I don't think so. I like Gary said, there's a lot to like about Brent Naden, the way that he plays, but there's also the flip side. He's a liability, and he's shown that several times this season. With silly sin bins at crucial times, which have, when you're 6-10 points behind, and we lose another one to the bin, and as it was the case for 2024 season, it was like clockwork, wasn't it? We lost 1 or 2 players to the bin, and all of a sudden, 2 or 3 tries are on the board, and we're completely gone. The game's over. So, but there's probably a reason as well why Penrith let him go. It wouldn't be like Ivan Cleary to let a player with his ability go if there weren't underlying reasons why I didn't think he was going to be, regular first grader as well. So it's a shame that he's got that inconsistency in the way that he plays, because I do like what he can bring, and he showed that in Cup. And to be honest, I didn't watch any full games of Cup this season, but I watched a lot of highlights, and he was very dangerous with, a lot of those games, whether it was fullback or in the halves or in centres. So it's a shame, but I don't think he's going to contribute with West Tigers next year.
It's funny. I think those games he played in the halves for the Magpies improved his game because he's just in the game more. So it took away that kind of, it kept his concentration up, and I thought he was less prone to those stupid mistakes because he was more focused on the game. He was more controlling in the game. He had the ball in his hands a lot more. I think that really benefited his game. So as a backup half playing in the Magpies, it's probably not too bad, but he's probably on a bit too much money for that role. So
it's funny how his name hasn't been mentioned as a possible trade anywhere. Like he just seems to have slipped completely off the radar in terms of the game. For a guy that's played, I think off the top of my head, about 80 first grade games, it seems unusual that there doesn't seem to be any discussion about him going elsewhere or anybody else, showing an interest in Naden. I wonder if his reputation's preceding him a bit.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. We spoke earlier about Bud Sullivan and being the young guy that he is, what damage will do to his career playing reserve grade. Naden's a fair bit older than he is and is probably in the back half of his career now. I know he's recently had a baby and bought property out at Penrith, so those sort of things, he's probably got deeper roots into where he is. So that probably limits his ability. And he's already been at the Dogs, he's already been at Penrith, and if he's not one I'd ever think would go over to play in the Super League. I don't think he'd kind of want to leave that Western Sydney kind of corridor, and it really only leaves Parramatta. So I think that part of his lives and the roots he has in where he's set up in his life, I think that probably makes it a little bit harder to move him on.
Yeah, it's a pity because you'd say physically he's perfect for the modern game to play centre. He's probably going to look back on his career and think, if I'd applied myself a little bit more, I really could have taken it to another level. And I guess it'd be a bit hard too to see, he left the Panthers when they were really starting to hit their top, and he missed that success. That might be something also to lament later on. It's a pity, but that's sometimes what happens. The third one, this is for Jordan. West Tigers will win 3 games in a row at some point in 2025. Nick, buy, sell, or hold that one?
Oh, buy. That's an easy one. I think they'll probably win. No, I was going to say more than 3.
10.
Maybe if we 10 straight, that'd be nice. We might win 3 with a buy in there somewhere as well. So
that doesn't count.
Doesn't count, mate.
I'll definitely buy 3. I don't want to get too cocky and say we'll win more than 3 in a row, but 3, 100% we'll win 3 in a row.
3s are still a pretty big hill to climb, Gary.
Mate, go get me Tyrrell May and we'll win 5.
Okay.
So, I think with that prediction and along with the success of our season, I think it depends on what we kind of do in the next probably month to 6 weeks. I think is really crucial for this club moving into 2025. And when you have a look at the young players we have on contract and who can start negotiating next year, I think the next 6 weeks is really crucial in the next 5 years of our club.
I've got another one, buy, sell, and hold off the top of my head. This off-season, working on our discipline, working on dropping down that terrible rate of ill discipline needs to be a primary focus for the coaching staff to work out and, maybe work with the refs. We've got to get better in that area, Gary.
100%. We can't be the most... You can't be a side coming off 3 wooden spoons and be the least disciplined side in the comp. You just can't do it.
Yeah.
But I do think the fact that... And I'm putting so much on his plate, but I think the fact that a guy like Jarome Luai, I think he's going to better control that on-field discipline. I don't think I think he'll maintain standards out on the field a lot better than what we've seen in the past. And that's no fault to... That's not having a go at Appy as our captain. It's just a different type of leader. But also, when you have a look at who our vice-captain was last year and the ill-discipline that he showed, I think having someone like Luai setting a much better example and being able to follow that example up with words, I'm hopeful that we'll see a lot better discipline. But it is something we've got to work on. I think we need to get the refs out at training a fair bit more, and we definitely need to get that target off our back.
Well, Nick, I wonder if Appy is... look, and we all love him, and we know how wholehearted he is, but as a captain, maybe we've been at a little bit of a disadvantage because he seems to be a pretty emotional guy out there. I wonder if somebody who's a little bit more of a calm head may make a difference in at least some of those calls where we're kind of getting, the rough end of the pineapple a little bit just because maybe, Appy gets in their face a little bit too much and is a little bit too emotional?
I think having someone like Jarome come in to help Appy is going to be extremely beneficial to Appy and the team as a whole. I think, Appy's frustration as well as John Bateman's frustration as well as Brent Naden's frustration, everyone's at the club comes from being, coming from a losing culture, right, and a losing team. And when you lose so many games in a row and you're out of contention, by, April, May, and you're looking at playing 3 or 4 months of footy still, and you're not going to play finals. That's got to have a lot to do with the ill discipline that sort of extends across the whole year. It all starts with standards, right? And the standards start in the preseason. So that's going to start when Jarome and the full squad come in and start training together, and they start running sandhills at Palm Beach and all their other long trial runs and whatever they're going to be doing through preseason. That all starts then. And that's going to continue through to round one. The tough part will be to maintain those standards as the rounds progress. And I guess they've got to learn from where they've come from. So they've got to learn from what's happened over the last few years, where they've had a lot of losses. They've been beat up by the media. They've been touted as a club that's going nowhere, can't be saved. They've just got to use that to build a stronger backbone going into 2025. Like, you've got to use that to empower yourselves going forward, because we have nothing to lose. The only thing that we have to lose is more dignity. Another wooden spoon. You're not going backwards, but it's they've just got to draw a line in the sand and say enough's enough. And I'm sure Benji will drill that into the team, and Jerome's going to say that. Jerome's not going to settle for a wooden spoon, especially off the back of 3 or 4 premierships in a row. So he's come out and said he wants to win consistently. So that's a mantra that has to be carried through the preseason and into the early rounds, which is why I think it's very important to start strongly. And I know, Gary, you're saying we just want to see some improvement next year and see us moving up the ladder, which is true. We all want to see that. I think it's just so important that come 4, 6, 8 rounds, that I reckon if we haven't won half of those games, it might get tough, that's where it's going to be interesting when the draw comes out too, because we're all going to start looking at who we've got. So there's a lot coming over the next few weeks with the draw and maybe with some player movements. So the next few weeks will be very interesting.
Nick, please do not mention the possibility of another wooden spoon. Don't even raise that point. That's not something I even want to think about.
Steve will be rolling in his early grave. Sorry, Steve, but no, it's not going to happen. We won't win the spoon next season. But I think just for our own sanity as fans, we just need to see a positive start to next year.
And that primary focus being over this off-season and through 2025 on being the most disciplined team in the competition. That's something that's in your sphere of control, isn't it, Gary? I mean, I know that you sometimes you get the rough end of the pineapple with the referees and that kind of stuff, and you have a bad day, but so much of that is in your conscious control.
Mate, you can't control what other people do, but you can most definitely control how you react to it. And at times I thought we were really poor in how we reacted to adversity. That's when we got a lot of those sin binning, is when things were getting a little bit tough. And Nick spoke about how that change in discipline needs to start when Jarome Luai, it needed to start yesterday. I think that's something as a coaching staff we need to be driving this off season. Is that standard is we're not the most penalised team in the competition next season. We're the least penalised team next season. I think that's something we need to be ramming home this entire pre-season. And it's great to say that Jerome's going to come in and he's going to set all these standards, and I've said it heaps myself, even on this pod. But he's not there for another 2 months yet. So these things need to be in place, being put in place now. Those improved standards need to be being worked on now. Benji Marshall and the rest of the coaching staff, Appy when he's there, Appy should only be a week, 2 weeks or so away. When he gets in there, we need to be driving these standards from the start of the season, and then have Jarome coming in and kind of be the guy who takes control of it at that point. But we need to be working on it now.
There's already one player, Gary, that got a head start on everyone 4 to 6 weeks before the season finished. There's one player that stood up and said, you know what, I'm not going to be this agitating player anymore. I'm going to put my hand up and I'm going to play with a level head, but still with my aggression, but be a better player. And you know who that is, don't you?
I know who you're going to say, but he did let it down a little bit in the last round.
No, come on. That you can't let that one, give him a bad... And you can't let that, ruin his reputation. Alex Seyfarth, love your work, mate. I hope you had a great off-season. Can't wait to see you back in their pre-season, ripping in for round 1, mate. Love your work.
Well, he's off contract next year. You're signing him for next year, Nick?
100%.
For 2026?
I love Big Red.
Gary may disagree, but anyway, we'll see how he goes. Not anybody just makes the Prime Minister's 13, like it's
100%
players.
100%.
No, I don't mind him. You just got to be much more disciplined. Last one for buy, sell, and hold. Eddie will resurface this off-season. Gary, what are our chances?
I think at some point I'll say something to him enough to get him worked up that he'll want to get public opinion on it, and usually the public tells him he's wrong. So
like Gutherson.
Yeah, like Gutherson.
Yep. Because he's disappeared after he came out real strong about Gutherson, and he's got shouted down and he's disappeared.
Eddie just wants a side of 17 fullbacks. That's all it is. 17 fullbacks, as long as none of them are Dream Bullock.
I think there's more chance of Eddie resurfacing at the Clovelly Hotel or Bondi Icebergs or somewhere like that.
Yeah, we'll buy that.
It's all right. He won't listen this far into the pod either.
No, exactly.
They him out.
All right, guys. As I mentioned right at the beginning, don't forget to join up for the West Tigers podcast forum. Join the discussion there. Nice and easy, westtigerspodcast.com.au, and just click on to forum and we'll see you there. And see you again at some stage in the near future, hopefully with some really exciting news about players coming and players going. That'd be fantastic, Gary.
Yeah, hopefully we need to record a pod next week because there's been some signings announced.
Yep.
I think that would be fantastic. That's what we really need. There's a couple of signings so we can get on here and talk about them.
Major sponsor, new board. There's plenty coming our way to talk about when it comes through.
And before we sign off, Joel, I just want to wish Bryce Gibbs a happy 40th birthday. As of recording today on Tuesday evening, it is Bryce Gibbs' 40th. Big fella, hope you've had a cracking day, mate.
Yep, fantastic player in his time. And, aside from the Marco Emili incident, no offence, but the try in the grand final always comes to mind when I think about Bryce Gibbs jumping on that ball. All right, guys, thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
Thanks
Joel. Thanks, Gary.